particular devotion, I would have to title it Accountability. We're looking at Ezra. We've been looking at the chronological Bible backwards, and we've been looking at Ezra going into Jerusalem to rebuild the temple. And it's very interesting. It's around chapter 7 of Ezra. And we have Artaxerxes, who's the king of Persia at the time. And after an appeal made to him, he makes a decree. And the decree is very, very clear. It's a voluntary offering. He and his council have made an offering for the people that are willing to, and it's all voluntary for the people that are willing to go back to Judah and to Jerusalem in particular, to take along with them silver and gold, and take along wheat, and take along oil and wine. And it's quite interesting because if you look at the list of items, and I've tried to research the value of those items that they were to take with them, it looks like something around $250,000 worth of merchandise that is going to be entrusted to Ezra and a handful of men. And it's a free will offering, both by Artaxerxes and by the people, both in Israel as well as those that are going to be going to Israel. And we find that as they're going to take it, they're also to buy some sacrifice animals so they can sacrifice on the altar. It's quite interesting to me that the way that's worded in the scriptures is that Artaxerxes was not necessarily a believer, but rather a free thinker, in the fact that he wanted to acknowledge that the people of Israel had a God that they considered their personal God, had respect for that God and respect for the people. Wasn't telling them to get out of his country, nor was he telling them that they had to stay in his country. I think he recognized they had been in captivity at Babylon, recognized the Babylonians had been pretty cruel, and was wanting to try to do something nice for the people. I think that's kind of an interesting take. However, you'll notice in verse 22 of chapter 7 that there were limits of what they could take. But there was also a warning in verse 24 that none of the stuff that they were taking could be taxed or have a toll placed on it, and that they were to pass safely through the land to Judah and to Jerusalem. And he gave them an unusual amount of power, because he told Ezra and the followers that he had, the priest and those that were going with Ezra, that they could establish their laws in the land and teach the laws to the people, and even punish the people in the lands. Now, that's pretty different than what happened in the Roman occupation of Israel, where they had to follow the Roman law, and where they couldn't do capital punishment, and the treatment that was given to the nation of Israel under the Roman Empire was considerably different than what Artaxerxes is doing here with the Jews, going back to the land to establish their own land and their own laws, and to punish accordingly. So it's quite interesting. But what I found the most interesting is what I'm going to show you in just a minute on the screen, and that's chapter 8, verses 32 through 34. Now remember, Ezra and his group of men and women are going to be taking $250,000 worth of merchandise and sacrifice animals to be used in the temple and the offerings in the temple on the altar. And that's quite a responsibility. Several people have asked me about how did I feel about being a pastor of a medium-sized church, and not a mega church, but a medium-sized church, where our budget was even 10 or 15 years ago was $500,000, and that's a lot of money. And I always said that I counted it a great responsibility to be a good steward of all that God had entrusted to us. And therefore, I took this challenge very seriously, and was very involved in the management of the money, but never able to sign a check or to get into the safe or any of those things, because I always wanted to stay above reproach. and to show my integrity of the handling of the money. And full financial reports were always given of everything, and anything that was designated was put into a different account, and under no circumstances was it to be touched for anything other than what it was designated for. Our Congress could certainly learn a lot about that from Social Security and some of the other funds that they've raided over the years to take care of other causes. Certainly contrary to some of the laws about designated money as it applies to churches. But in any case, let's take a look at chapter 8, verses 32 through 34, where we find some more of those names that are always hard to spell and hard to say. Not knowing exactly how to pronounce them is always a chore. So I went to my that's easy for you to say section and asked the names to be pronounced for me, and I'll try not to slaughter them as I have some of these other names. But here's chapter 8, beginning at verse 32. Thus we came to Jerusalem and remained there 3 days. On the 4th day, the silver and the gold and the utensils were weighed out in the house of God into the hands of Meremoth, the son of Uriah the priest, and with him Eleazar, the son of Phinehas, and with them were the Levites, Jozabad, and the son of Jeshua, and Noadiah, the son of Ben-Ui. And everything was numbered and weighed, and all of the weight was recorded at the time. Now, Matthew Henry's commentary makes it very clear that to turn over and have an accountability of those funds and of that material was a great relief to Ezra and to those that were traveling with him, and a great relief from both Persia and also those receiving them to know that there was an accountability for what was a great sum of money's worth of goods and sacrifice animals. And I would suggest to you that all of us have to be good stewards, not just pastors of churches, but all of the congregation as well. God entrusts a certain amount of material goods and of money to all of us, and we should be accountable to Him for all that we have and how we use it. And I think that every one of us should be able to, at the end of our lives, say that I've been a good steward for God. And I think if we were to apply the lesson of Ezra here, not only do we see that he was qualified for the duty, that he had a real zeal for the Lord, but that he was a good steward, that he was trustworthy, and that he was willing to be held accountable, and that he was accountable for all that God entrusted to his care. And that's my thought for the day. God bless you and have a great day.